Hello. Years ago I made a video about edging an Obsidian slab, and I've recently traded a buddy a bunch of arrowheads that I made for a whole bunch of rock. He's gotten out of flint knapping, and so I've got an issue with rock storage right now, and I've got so much, so I'm going to be selling some slabs. If you're interested, and I thought I'd go over another Hammerstone Slabs. What I like about these slabs is that they're thick enough for percussion work. This one is sort of narrow. There's a whole bunch of different shapes and widths. There's dacite, and there's looks like some mahogany and some silver sheen. I haven't really gone through everything, but some of it is, you know, pretty nice and pretty. I mean, it seems like it's really good stuff, but there might be a crack here or there. I selected this one because it's more pointed, and it has a little crack right off the edge there. So I thought I'd do some trimming with the hammerstone. If you knap with small hard hammerstones, then if you overstrike and hitting on square edges, you're more likely to put a crack in the piece. So I like to use the Grittier hammerstones. I haven't used this one yet. I just picked this up. I had to get a diamond blade at Home Depot, and sometimes I'll carry extra rocks around in my truck that are just cobbly ones that aren't good. And then if I see some hammerstones I feel like I'm not thieving, and I can just kind of trade them out for a new brader or whatnot. I'm sure that some of you guys have been in the Taco Bell drive-thru and spotted a little piece of chert or hammerstone and done the same thing. I think that it's perfectly fine to do that. Anyhow, so let's do some hammerstone work on this. In the description I'll include prices and shipping. I'm selling these slabs by the inch. I'm sort of sorting out kind of what they're going for, because I don't want to sell too cheap and then have people just buy it and then mark it up 200% and resell everything. And I want people to be able to get it. This is for domestic shipping. I'll charge for free domestic shipping for medium and large flat rate boxes. What I'll probably do is tape all the slabs together so that they're one solid chunk, and then just kind of pad them and double box them, so they should arrive safely. I've had pretty good luck with that before. And I could just biface all this stuff out and sell it by the inch, but I've got enough of it. And to be honest with you, if I spent all winter making blades and hunting points out of this stuff, I'd probably there's enough here that's just too much glass knapping that I want to do. I've got too many rocks, so anyhow, I've got too much rock. So I'll put everything in the description about how many inches I can fit per medium and large flat rate box, and I'm thinking like $1.75 to $2 an inch on stuff, and I'll check it and make sure that it's, there's no obvious cracks. I'll wash it off and give it a good look over. So if there's a piece like this and I can see an issue, I'll check it so that you can get maximum length. Sometimes when you buy slabs, you have to get really good at looking at the surface and seeing where there might be like a little crack in the middle, especially on expensive rock. So maybe I can do a video on that, because guys are slabbing stuff, it's easy to miss those little cracks, or they're getting to the outside of a crack and they're checking and trimming. Sometimes I'll go through a lot of rock and I can tell right off that it's a $50 or $70 slab that shouldn't be chipped, that the odds of it not breaking are, especially if it's heated, and especially if it's got square edges and crystal, or areas where you're having to deal with a crack too, and there's enough heaviness that it's really hard to check. And of course I can miss that stuff too, but I'll try to go through it so that when I sell this stuff, you won't get a bad piece, or I'll do my best to check that. So I think that will be fair, and I've got enough to. I haven't gone through how many inches I've got, but I've got a lot. So let's look at this one. I picked it because it was kind of pointed, and I saw that this little crack was right there. So first thing I like to do is check. There's an area. It looks like it's going to be pretty shallow, but check. Give it a little braid. Get the hammerstone. Overstrike it just a little bit. You can see that little bit of that seam in there. And that's going to chip out just fine. If you have hammerstones on medium and small slabs, you can just abrade the edges and be pretty aggressive on chipping bevels. Like what I wouldn't want to do, since this is narrow, is chip this side with a steep bevel and then also go by this side. I'd probably want to do it alternate so that I could smooth and go across. And on this one, I'd probably want to also just come on the back and trim the square edge so that I can work up a corner. And that puts a little plane so I can run this square edge, kind of hold it down. See if that created a nice bevel there? And maybe do the same thing on the tip here. Lose a little bit of length. What I like about these slabs is that they're thick enough for percussion. If these were thinner, I've seen people with the raised pads and they'll get a big slab and they start pressure flaking. And man, you have a lot of time into just getting it to where you've got convexities on your preform. And talk about strain on the wrist and hands and joints. So I prefer the Hammerstone on these slabs that are thick enough to just make them into fairly quick bifaces. So we can do a little bit more trimming, little short flakes. When you know that you've got a pointy area, I just like to do some careful turning so that I can save some length. If there's an area where you can see you can preserve width and you can get a flake across, then just drop the angle into these little brushing strikes and then look for an area that's heavy to knock a flake across. And these soft grabby Hammerstones, they do a good job, better than an antler or a small bopper. And I like a width like this, and a little radius. Just these little fun trimming flakes, finger support underneath it when you need it. This is really good Hammerstone practice. Okay, so we've got our edges pretty well in control. At this stage I can just set up a few more platforms to smooth and go with the Hammerstone, or I can use the antler. But I'm in a good position right now to maximize. I think I lost enough bit of this pointy end to have everything pretty well on stage on that one. And this is dacite. So this is a little bit, has a little bit more integrity than and stiffness than the stuff that cooled faster, like other Obsidian. So let's go into a piece of Obsidian. So this is a piece of mahogany. It's got a nice little beveled edge here. It's got a point. And one thing I don't like to do is zigzag and you end up having an edge like this, and then you have to get smaller platforms on those spurs. So depending on what point you want to make, you can decide, you have to chip this. You can't just knock big flakes off this and get everything really thin and flat and scalloped early, or unless you're wanting to make a rudimentary biface, because you need contours to keep flaking. So sometimes I'll just sacrifice some width early, and so I'll just go and just trim around. We've got this tip down here, so we can, and I like to do a lot of this standing up. Most of my hammer work that I do on film is sitting down for the camera, but I really prefer to be standing up. So just hitting up just high enough on the edge. When you can learn what abrasion you need and the finger support. Just coming down. If this was a really hard Hammerstone, some of these overstrikes would put cracks off the edge. See how that angle is dropped? If you wanted to use the copper bopper, and those clamps that you can hold wood, those those tension clamps that are broad and flat paddle. If you got big slabs, if you want to do commercial knapping and make knife blades with percussion, I would get one of those clamped pads, put some leather on it, hold it down at an angle, and get it to where, you know how like a bulldozer can run over a thin point and just scratch it, and you wondered like how did that not break? It's because it was supported in like some dirt completely evenly and it just got sheared off. So if you were to pad clamp, you could do that traditionally too, but I just like to freehand stuff. And then hold it down, then you could take your bopper, you could even put the clamp up to where you couldn't overstrike. And then you could just go along and, you know, percussion like you're playing the cymbal on the drums and just walk up the edge, and you probably can, I mean, I wouldn't do that with a piece of Imperial Jasper, but on some of this Obsidian, there's got to be really quick ways to do that if you want to use the bopper and not the Hammerstone. Look at that, I'm just overstriking it just enough. It would be nice if it's not too steep, but I have plenty of areas to get in there and just kind of walk down that edge. And if you want to hit like a heavier bump with another flake, you can. But this is just, you know, going back and taking those little flakes there, kind of bringing that edge, bringing a little smoothness off that edge. Just little nippers. Another strategy is to do like a bevel here and then turn it over and do like a hay kind of bevel. Then you can keep width. Your edges will get offset, but you can straighten them. My phone screen looks so dark. So a little bit of square edge there, and I'm going to want to keep length, so just take a little bit here. This is the width eating, but then this is a stage where all the edges are right and you can rapidly thin after this. One thing I see a lot of beginner knappers do is they get too precious about keeping the width and then over-abrading edges. So if you can learn how to create these contours and, you know, do some of your, get your edges positioned and lose that width early, then you can, getting rid of those heavy areas, then you can really be ahead of the game on these slabs. And this is a nice thickness to percussion. If this was slabbed, you know, half as thin, then you have to lose way more width, because you need contours in order to make stuff really thin. I'm not used to wearing a glove, so I'm slipping around. So that's edged, and I can just take the whitetail antler and just thin this thing down fast. So if I was gonna sit and just make percussion bifaces, I'd probably come out ahead on this rock, because I could make quick work of just making, you know, knife blades out of this stuff and sell them for $7 an inch or whatever. But I've got enough that I can spread the wealth if you're interested. I can only work so many slabs before I feel like I'm working in an Amazon warehouse for myself. Not that I've done that. No offense to anyone in an Amazon warehouse. So I hit the here because I see that little seam off the edge here. So I identified a flaw in the material. Look at it closely. Cortex, crystal, chalk, junk. Too many times I see knappers look at a chunky block of rock and they look at a natural angle where there's good flint and they hit that off, and instead of spending the time to work all the cracks and junk out, because you might end up hitting the only spot that's got good flint and not getting the flake you want. See, I'm supporting that with a finger, and I'm not doing a lot of abrasion, because I can just kind of dull and just, you know, we had all that width here, so we can just take that down. So a good angle to come back that way. And instead of flipping it over and doing this, we'll bevel that back so we can come across. turn it over and look. Now we're thinning from here, and we're thinning from there. And this set is so flat, this is going to be contour building, not really long flakes. Trim up as I go, start at one end. Where ridges converge is a good spot to strike, just high enough. It's a little heavy to get in, and this edge is turned down, so I'm gonna walk this edge back around, skip that, come back here. I know this is gonna be my tip. Try to be a little stingy. Here we go. A little bit slower when I've got that lean platform, support with the finger, and don't hit it too hard, because you want to, if your platform shatters too bad, you won't get the flake you want. So a little biface. Let's maybe do, this one is on a little bit on the thinner side. I'm looking here and noticing this teeny little line right there. That's going really shallow crack right off the edge. This area right here might have an issue. I'm seeing one teeny little line right there, but I think it's gonna be okay. So since this line is right here, if I overhit something, that might break off there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and trim this area out of the way. And we'll have a little look-see and see what that crack does. I don't think it's going to be much at all. That's a good angle to come back. That area that was over here that I pointed out, that went deeper than I thought. See right there? I gave preference to checking this crack, and I probably should have checked that anytime there's a little softness in there. So that was probably going to happen anyhow, because I see it went down to there. I'll try to look at this stuff and make sure that there's not a lot of that going on, but it's gonna happen occasionally. I mean, when you slab rock, it's just how it is. But there's still a nice little point in here. Just little brushing nips, take down that square edge. Hammerstone chip a lot cleaner than antler when you're just being casual like this, and also a lot friendlier to not breaking stuff. Okay. That would make a nice Elko or something. If you're not comfortable with antler percussion, you can hammerstone down, and then if you are comfortable with pressure, you can do a little bit more work and then do some pressure flaking on this stuff. Some of the slabs are a little bit thinner. Some of them are thicker. I can't see any issues with this at all. It looks solid. And let me find one that looks like it's some of these end cuts I won't send. See how this has been hit a little bit? Obsidian is in the ground and it sort of mashes up against itself. So some of these end cuts like this, I can show you how you can keep the length and width on this. Main thing to do is you gotta get your edges turned to come back this way or lose a little bit of length. So I would just go ahead and borrow from this square back and cut your losses, and then turn over with the right angle to thin up here. There's the coning from where this thing tumbled into another rock. So try not to be too aggressive. So if it hit something deep, it wouldn't. So this was a checking flake. So wait a little bit more. So a couple more flakes, and then we're right back at it like it was slabbed. Square the tip and come down this ridge a little bit, and that'll really help us preserve width in this area without doing the percussion this way. We got two corners here. I got some of it. More. Let's do another one here. Because of the termination here, let's do just a little cleaner right there. Okay, that cleaned into that termination nicely, so now we can come back down here. Now I would just continue. There's two things we can do: continue thinning from the bottom, or I can just make this a little steeper and use this area here to do a little trimmer. Grind this down and come back. It's more fun to work these end cuts and weird shapes than it is all the slabs, because you got different challenges that you can do to knock bigger flakes and have fun, and not just be in the boring everything is flat and building contours. You can have fun getting crafty. That one pried that edge off a little bit where there was a little bit of, there's some little air in that side of the edge right there. When lip flakes happen with hard impactors, it's usually due to a bump in the platform or an impurity in the rock. It's easier for that edge to fold off there than it is to make a traditional hammerstone platform removal. When you get into consistent materials and middle and late stage thinning, then the signature of the tools stick out like a sore thumb. Slow. That would make a teeny point. So I'm just coring it down from the ends. One more flake there, and then I'd be ready to come in from the sides, because these square edges won't be much of an issue. So that was kind of fun. Let me pick out a weird piece. Okay, this is another. Oh, that is gorgeous, though. I'm not a fan of mahogany obsidian, really, but this is a really attractive piece. It's more red than pumpkin. So we've got all this tip, right? We can't really do much with that. So I'm going to lose length and just trim down this ridge to get rid of that square edge. Kind of have to do it. Oops. See how I just relied on the that edge not being supported? And I hit too heavy there. I was being careless. so I folded that off because it was a little too heavy to take that. If my fingers would have been up a little bit more on there, then that wouldn't have happened. But since that was so pointy, and I got so much of this rock, big deal. Boy, that is pretty stuff. We can just abrade this down then. Fix our issue that we had up here. Small gritty hammerstones, and just the wrist, right? This stuff is so flaky that there's not a lot of strength involved, and it will teach you the angles perfectly because it's so brittle. So, I mean, it's just great hammerstone practice. And a little piece like this hammerstone is a little big. But no bother. See, I made that little beveled edge, and I can just go up and take a little flake and then a bigger one, and it's gonna be, I'll have to come back this way up here. Okay, now, if somebody wanted to learn hammerstones and be able to get this far and cleanly, then it'd be pretty easy to do just a little pressure if you're not comfortable doing all the little trim with the hammerstone, and then, little light percussion, and then do some pressure. And antler on this stuff, I think that it would be a good teaching tool for antler pressure and hammerstones, just to work this stuff, because the feedback is so immediate. It's probably better that that tip broke off, because we would have had a lot of width here, and then we would have ended up inevitably getting narrow towards the top. So I'm more a fan of that color than this color, but potato potato. Do this dacite. How long is this video? Is it recording even? No, 20 some. So how about I'll leave my email in the description. I'll take a measurement. I've got a medium flat rate box right here, so I'll get a medium and a large. I'll load it up with tied together slabs in like a big brick, and then I'll pad around it, so I'll see how much how many inches I can get in there to give y'all an estimate, and then you can sort out what size box you want. If I just ship these in the small flat rate box, I won't be able to get much, and the shipping is, I think, about almost $10. And I realized when I did my scrap knapping rock giveaways that I charged the small flat rate boxes were like, I don't know, at $9.70 or something now. But when I charge $10. When I get money in PayPal, I'd only get $9.40. So I'm losing a little bit on $10 small flat rate boxes. So as many inches that can go in a small flat rate box for free shipping, I don't know if it probably wouldn't be worth it. So, but if you're on a budget and wanted little stuff, then I can do that. Sometimes there's a saw mark that's not a crack. So when you look at the blade marks on this, and you can see one that's a little bit, that cuts in more, That's an issue with the blade, not an issue in the stone. But when you see one of those just on its own doing something different, then you can... And I'm learning more about this stuff where there's an exterior part of the cobble and it goes in, and there's some soft areas. You want to chip that off first. See that light area right there? Like that other one, that might be a little bit of a weak area, so I would chip that out and have a look-see. I'm enjoying chipping the volcanics and learning about some of the Western stuff. I recently had somebody generously give me some study pieces, and I'm working on different flaking types and different types. I don't have a whole lot of buyers that in the past have wanted that kind of stuff, so we'll have to sort out what the kind of market is for that stuff before I can be producing a lot of it. But you can see that light area still in there, but it's fun. It's a whole different world from the Western stem stuff, and I mean, there's some really cool artifacts. So there's a little bit left of that soft area. I think it's going to be just... Yeah, I just chipped right out. There's a teeny bit left, but that's not going to be an issue. Okay, so I don't know how many inches I have. I've got buckets and buckets of these slabs, and I don't have more obsidian. I'm not going to be cutting more, so this is it. And I'll save a little bit for myself to enjoy. But I've got so much rock, and the area I'm at right now is not. I'm building a new knapping shop, and I'll have some storage there. But aside from just piling stuff outside, I don't have tons of room. So if you're interested, let me know. Here's some dacite. This is cone 2 right there. So I would just lose my width and then check that. But most of the time that's so shallow. If the end of your spall has got a droop and stuff, you just kind of have to know what was going to come off anyhow, and just kind of move the edge where you know it's going to go. Instead of abrading, I do a lot of this chopping. Okay, see where our cone dairy has a little crack there? We'll get to the bottom of that shortly. Still going in there. I'm in my shadow. Can't hit there. I've got to pick a spot here or here. See if I can get some smooth flakes. Maybe start up at the tip and just kind of work down. There's a tiny bit left right there. That flake kicked through. What's left of that little crack right there. That thing bumped into something hard in the formation. These things are welded together, and movement kind of can cone up the exterior on some of it. So end cuts and things like that, you want to look. You want to look for those issues and figure a way to get rid of them. That's just about the left of that. There's just a skosh, but that's the end of it. So you can see the bottom. So the reason why I didn't do this tip is because of weakness. And I think if I did something heavy up here, that would have broken. So, the quick trimming is kind of fun because not everything has to be perfect. Lessons of this video: wider slabs, kind of like a double bevel. Chip the edges down one way, and then maybe, you know, flip it the other way so you've got your edge that goes up. That way you can split the difference then in building those contours. On narrow ones, just go in the bevel and then just trim up. If you go in the bevel and it gets really steep, then you have to do those chopping or little kind of nip and flakes to get started. Just so you'll just pick a spot and kind of have to move over and then just blend in. Maybe avoid pressure flaking early unless you're wanting the exercise. You're entering the strongman contest for grip strength or bull riding or whatever, and you just kind of want to practice up. That was kind of silly, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of energy. So everything looks, for the most part, just excellent on these. I have some bigger solid pieces in here. It won't come out. So I don't know what else to say. I'm putting together more scrap knapping things, and I'm throwing some rock away, but it's stuff that's small but knappable that I think people can use. On stuff like that, I'm not just gonna milk everything I can for I'm not producing enough of it that it's worth it. And for guys that are wanting to pressure flake and do light percussion on that stuff, I'm gonna have another one of those available. But I probably will be charging $10.50 instead of $10 for the flat rate. That way, my tape and, you know, I'm not losing money on that stuff. And almost everybody paid, or I think everybody did. And I'll get a system better up to where I can keep track of everything. But I guess that's all I have to say for now. I've got buckets of this stuff, so if I get absurd amounts of requests, then I might have to just first come, first serve. But I think that at $2 free shipping, large and medium flat rate boxes, I ought to be marked in the price range enough to where everyone feels like they're getting a good enough deal, and I'm not just gonna like sell out immediately and then not have any to ship for myself. So I think that's it. If I'm too high on that, just let me know. I haven't ever sold Obsidian slabs before, but from what I've heard, that's like low ballpark. So anyhow, happy napping and enjoy your day. In Colorado, everyone says, have a great rest of your day. And it's a big thing. I don't know why that's funny to me, but have a great rest of your day. 2 thumbs in, Frank.